How much does it cost to start on GoImagine? This is a common question I've been getting more and more as this rising competitor to Etsy rises. Redundant much, but GoImagine is growing, and they've been growing for the last several years. They've been around for a couple of years now, and now they're finally getting a foothold as, I think, a more serious competitor to Etsy. They have a great vision. They donate their profits to charity. Their fees are lower, but I want to do a full comparison of not only how their fees stack up to Etsy, because a lot of people are choosing to switch over to GoImagine or sell in addition to. I don't know if you should make that full switch just yet, but I think there's nothing wrong with putting more lines in the water and starting to sell on GoImagine. So I want to break it down, the fees of GoImagine, compare it to Etsy, and give you some other considerations that maybe you haven't thought of that'll help you and your business. If you don't know me, I'm LL, founder of the Handmade and Beyond website, podcast, YouTube channel. I create resources to help sellers on Etsy and other e-commerce platforms so that they don't have to struggle, so that they can reach their goals faster and eliminate frustrations. I hope you guys like and subscribe. So let's go into GoImagine and kind of break this down. If you are listening to this and not watching, I am going to write stuff here on a whiteboard. So if it sounds like there's a gap in me talking, I'm writing something. This will be posted on the YouTube channel and the website as well. All right, so let's break down GoImagine's pricing and fee structure. First of all, they have 5% transaction fee. All right, that is the biggest chunk that you're going to have to pay. Is the transaction fee, which is 5%, and that is on the total, the complete total of the purchase, including any shipping costs that the buyer pays. So if you, depending on how you want to structure your shipping costs, the total will be applied to that as well. Basically, that's no different than Etsy. That's no different than eBay. So you can't put like something up for $1 and then charge like $30 for shipping to get around the 5% fee. They don't want any hanky-panky funny business. So that's why they're doing it. So it's, someone ruined it for everyone. So there you go. The next thing is sales tax, but this is kind of a wash. So I'm really not going to include it in the actual full example because the sales tax is added to the total, and then GoImagine collects that sales tax that the buyer pays, and then they'll remit that for you. So you don't have to worry about doing sales tax. Before, we were having to collect sales tax and then remit that at a quarterly basis to our whatever state we were in, because you have to remit sales tax for the state that you're in when you're selling. Now all these platforms do it for you, which is super nice, saves a ton of time. So just know that you'll see that on the total, and that's going to be taking rate back out. So it's really a wash when it comes to kind of looking at the fees. The next thing is the Stripe processing fee. This is the payment provider. You can't get around this. No matter where you sell, there's always going to be a processing fee. Even if you have your own website, you're going to have to pay someone, and they're going to take a fee. Usually it's Stripe, PayPal, or some other processing fee. So 2.9% is the Stripe processing fee plus 30 cents a transaction, right? They do a percentage, and then they do it off the top transaction cent fee. So those are the off the top, those are the fees per every transaction. You get the 5% plus the 2.9% plus 30 cents. Now, the other thing to consider is membership fees. In order to sell on GoImagine, you need to join one of their membership tiers, and that will allow you to add more or less listings. So the first membership tier is Launch. You can add 20 listings. It's $2.50 a month. If you're just getting started, this is probably good for you. The next is $5 a month, and this is the Thrive membership fee. You can do 200 listings. And the last one is Mosaic, 10 months, 1,000 listings plus a Mosaic website, which basically you can build your own website that you have, just creates, trustworthiness, and you can design it how you want within their website builder, and then you can attach it to your own domain. Etsy has something similar. It's called Pattern, but you can actually import your listings and have your own website, and it's all housed within GoImagine. So that's pretty cool. So you get that benefit if you want to use it. If not, if you just want the 1,000 listings, you can do it that way. So let's break this down. Now that we know the fees, let's break this down and give you guys a good example of kind of how this stacks up for like if someone's buying something. So let's just say you have a $25 item, and we know, like, just assume it's $5 shipping. So the whole item with shipping is $30 that the customer is going to have to pay. Now, we're going to assume, so one thing when it comes to GoImagine, they don't have a built-in shipping label. So you can't purchase labels on GoImagine. So you have to connect with like Pirate Ship. There's other ones out there, and you will get a discount that's really comparable. You know, if you buy labels off like Etsy or whatever, it is comparable to that. I think it's pretty close to the same rate. So let's just assume that the $5 is a wash. Like the buyer pays us $5, and then we're using that $5 to buy a shipping label. So it's a wash. And you're charging, if you're charging the correct amount for shipping. So we'll assume that that's a wash. But keep in mind that for the transaction fee, the 5%, it does take it off the total $30. It doesn't take it off $25. So we'll charge it on the shipping as well, like I said. So keep that in mind, that you are paying a little bit more because it is taking off the shipping cost. So because of the hanky-panky stuff that I mentioned earlier. So that is kind of, so where the breakdown of fees come in. First of all, is going to be the transaction fee, which is going to be it's going to be $1.50. So 5% transaction fee is $1.50 off the top. And then the next fee is going to be the Stripe processing fee, which is going to be $1.17, which is, again, that's the 2.9% plus 30 cents. Basically, that totals up to $1.17, and the total fees is going to be $2.67 plus shipping, $5. We're going to add that in there. So that's going to be $7.67. That's going to be the total fees for this, for this sale. Basically, we can kind of take this a step further, and the profit is going to be $23.33. Profit, but not real profit. I'm going to talk about that later. And if you want to figure out profit margin, you take the total fees divided by the total costs, and then you would get the profit margin of 74%, which is always good to know your profit margin so you can account for these costs and other things. Keep your profit margin as high as possible. But again, I'm going to talk about this. This isn't the real profit margin because there's other things to take into account, which I'm going to talk about. All right, so now let's compare this to Etsy. I'm going to write this at the top. We're going to do Go is going to be, profit's going to be 23.33, so we don't forget, 74% profit margin. And we're going to erase this, and we're going to do an Etsy scenario. Same price, same everything. All right, so Etsy, considering, we're gonna do $30 with $5 shipping. All right, so how this same example looks when compared to Etsy. Etsy has a transaction fee of 6.5%, plus they take a listing fee of 20 cents per listing. Each time you list something or something sells, it's 20 cents, or it has to be renewed, it's 20 cents. And then the processing fee is 3%, plus 25 cents, and that varies between country. I'm just doing it for US, so if you're in another country, it could be 6% plus 30 cents, it could be 4%. So for US, it's 3% plus 25 cents. Check that on Etsy to see what your country is. Shipping costs, again, you can do calculated shipping where Etsy will charge the customer exactly what it costs to ship the item. You can also do fixed, but I'm not going to go into that. As fixed, you can put whatever you want. So we're going to assume the shipping cost is $5. And that is going to be a wash. Again, Etsy will apply the transaction fee to the total cost, including shipping, so you can't do the hanky-panky stuff. Those are the actual costs. Sales tax is collected and remitted by Etsy. So again, that is a wash. You don't have to do anything. It's paid by the buyer, and then Etsy will remit that for you, so you don't have to do anything. So the total fees, kind of the transaction fee, the processing fee, all that added together for Etsy is going to be 9.5% is going to be the total, plus the 45 cents. That's going to be the added processing fee, and the listing fee is going to add it to 45 cents. So basically, we're taking those total fees, and then we're going to take it out of the total. That is going to be on the $30 item. It's going to be $2.85 in terms of fees, plus a shipping fee of $5, which is going to equal $7.67. in fees. Now we're going to add the 45 cents to that, and that's going to be $8.30 in total fees to sell this $25 item with the $5 shipping on Etsy. So really, when it comes to the actual amount that we take home, it's going to be 21. I'm gonna write this. It's going to be a little crooked. 21.70 in profit, not real profit. Again, I'm going to talk about that. 21.70, and that's going to be a 72% profit margin. You can see, compare that to GoImagine, 74%, Etsy 72, 23.33 with GoImagine, 21.70. Pretty close as far as the comparableness considering the fees. However, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the other kind of caveats in this, which is offsite ads. When it comes to Etsy, offsite ads, you can opt in or opt out or be automatically opted in. So basically, if you make over $10,000 in a rolling 365-day period, you're automatically opted into offsite ads, meaning Etsy will select some of your listings, promote them to Bing, Facebook, wherever, and if they sell, they can take as high as a 10% fee. It's usually never that in my experience, but it could be that. If you are less than $10,000 in a rolling 365-day period, you can choose to opt in or opt out, but they could take more. They can take up to 12% fee. So that is up to you. You have a choice, but people honestly are pissed that they don't have a choice past the $10,000. I think you should still have a choice. I don't know why they don't make it so you don't have a choice. But again, my return on ad spend is it's anywhere from 6 to 9 times. So it is really good. It's really profitable, and the fees are usually never 10%. They have that at the top tier, but it's usually never 10%. But just know that that could be taken, if you are opted in, that could be taken off the top here. So let's just say, 10% of $21.70, that's another $2.70 or $2.17, whatever the math is on that. So it's another $2 off the top, and that'll bring your profit margin down into the 60s, or it could be 12%. Again, I need to let you know that could happen, and that's something that you should consider. Chances are it probably won't be that extreme, but it does eat into your costs. Again, another reason why you need to start out with a decent profit margin to account for rising costs, rising fees, rising material costs. All those things kind of come into play. The other thing that kind of comes into play here that I need to talk about is going to be basically the monthly costs that add up. For GoImagine, it is going to be the membership. For Etsy, it's going to be the renewal fees, that you have to consider for all of your listings. You're paying for all of your listings every 4 months, whether they sell or not. So let's do a comparison on that. So Etsy is 20 cents per listing, renewal fees every 4 months. You're going to have to pay that. So if you have 200 listings every 4 months, that's going to equate to a total amount of $120 a year in fees for 200 listings, $120 that you're going to have to pay, whether they sell or not. You got to pay the renewal every 4 months, so basically 3 times a year for 200 listings, $120. So take an example for GoImagine. If their $20 or their 200 listing plan is going to be $5 a month, which is going to equate to $60 a year. All right, so you're about half the cost. You're saving $60 a year on GoImagine with their listings. Their next tier is 1,000. That's going to change things drastically, but I'm just using the 200 listings as an example. So that's another thing that you have to consider is those membership fees. Other than that, surprisingly close when you consider all the other fees and kind of the comparison. The other things that I have to mention too, just keep in mind that, like I said, the profit margin is not the profit margin. You have to consider labor costs, material costs, shipping supply costs, machinery that you use, that you have to purchase, all the things that kind of play into being able to make your stuff. Taxes that you have to remit to the tax man at the end of the year, federal taxes. So those are all kind of play into your profit margin. That is why you should start with a high profit margin as much as possible when you're researching what to sell, when you're doing your due diligence and figuring out what you're going to offer and making sure you're getting stuff wholesale, to get that profit margin as high as possible without sacrificing quality, because at the end of the day, all this stuff starts eating into your profit margin. So I usually tell people at least try to shoot for a 50% profit margin. If we started at a 50% profit margin here with the fees, we'd be down now into the 30s probably, or even the high 20s, which isn't bad if you're selling a decent amount of stuff. But again, you're giving yourself less and less wiggle room if you're starting so low. If you're starting with a 10% profit margin, you're going to lose money with these examples. You're screwed. So don't do that. Do your research, do your due diligence before you ever start your niche to make sure, is there enough wiggle room? Is it worth it? Otherwise, do something where it's worth it, that you can manufacture stuff as inexpensively and as high quality as possible. The other big consideration when you're comparing the two, when it comes to Etsy and GoImagine, is traffic. This is probably the biggest difference right now, and this is the biggest ground that GoImagine needs to make up. And they are making up ground. They started a couple of years ago, and they are growing pretty substantially. So if they keep this current growth rate up, they could become a legit competitor in a couple of years. So in the previous 3-month span from, I think it was January to March, Etsy's traffic was let me just make this a little bit bigger, 1.23 billion visits. 1.203 billion visits. GoImagine's was 604 or 608,000 compared to 1.23 billion. So drastically different as far as traffic. However, the other thing that kind of you got to think about, it's all relative. Etsy has 8 million, it's like 8 or 9 million buyers, or 8 or 9 million sellers. They have like 93 million buyers, which is a lot. 93 to 100 million buyers, give or take. They have 8 million sellers, which is your competition. GoImagine has 6,000. All right, so much less competition on GoImagine. However, you need sellers, and you need a lot of sellers because sellers bring in buyers. So competition is good. If GoImagine didn't have any sellers, or Etsy didn't have any sellers, there wouldn't be any buyers because there'd be no products to buy. You know what I mean? So at this ratio, though, it's pretty good. You know what I mean? That if you divide the number of visits per sellers and compare the two, it's pretty close. I think with Etsy it's like 150, and with GoImagine it's like 104 visits per seller. So it's pretty close. It's pretty relative. If they keep growing this way, I think it's going to be good. But that's kind of what you have to look at too, is traffic. Just know going into GoImagine, it's nowhere close to the traffic that Etsy has. So it's going to be more of an uphill battle to get things to work. But again, you can start now, get your stuff out there, and then as GoImagine grows, the traffic will come and you can start to capture some of that traffic. It's kind of, you're getting ahead of the game. Just know going into it, it's going to be slow. It's going to be an uphill battle. Just like selling on Etsy, it's slow. Even though they have a ton more traffic, it's still hard to get your foothold. It's so hard to get going. Just keep that in mind. So some final thoughts here for you. A final comparison just to kind of get your head in the game as far as this e-commerce world and the fees, because no one likes paying fees. Everyone gets pissed about fees, but you have to understand, it's the price of entry. It is the price to get that traffic. You have to pay the fees, get the traffic, and then capitalize on the traffic. Get the traffic to your shop, to your listings. But just for comparison sake, Shopify, like if you were to start your own website, build it on Shopify, that's 2.9% processing fee plus I think it's like 30 cents. All right, and that's it. That's the only fee you're going to have. However, Shopify has zero traffic. It's your own website. You have to generate your own traffic. You have to run ads. You have to do SEO, do blogging, do other things to generate your own traffic. So that's the caveat. It's like, oh yeah, it's a lot cheaper. There's no traffic, and you still got to pay. I think there's also a membership fee. I think it's like 20 or 30 bucks a month as well. I didn't mention here, but that's a transaction fee. So you could be paying 20 bucks a month plus this transaction fee if you sell anything, which you're probably not going to do because you haven't generated your own traffic yet. eBay is 6 to 15%, depending on what you sell. 6 to 15%, depending on what your category you're in as far as final value fee, and you may have to pay a listing fee depending on, and they do free listings a lot of times now. Amazon is 15 to 45% on the high end. The average is 15%, depending on what you sell. Again, and it's a lot harder to sell on Amazon. If you've ever tried to set up Amazon, it's cumbersome. It's hard to sell on Amazon. Their system is very hard to use, and I don't know why they don't kind of revamp it. I think they do that on purpose. Poshmark, you can do vintage, you can do handmade on Poshmark. 20% average fee to sell on Poshmark. So with all these other fees and all these other platforms, you know, Etsy doesn't seem so bad, and certainly GoImagine doesn't seem bad at all. You know, they're probably, you know, they are the least expensive, you know, GoImagine, unless you want to start your own website. So that is kind of the breakdown, just so you know kind of what is out there and the fees involved and everything that plays into and should play into your costs and your profit margin, how to figure out your profit margin so that you can make the best decision for you. Hopefully you guys got some value out of this. Have an awesome rest of your day.